Hi, this is Sam Landau, and I'm watching from New York City. Enjoy FD Day.
Hi, I'm here with Hannah, who's 10 months old and has FD, and will be tuning in from Melbourne in Australia.
Hi, we're the Sachs family. I'm Stacy.
I'm Adam.
Justin.
I'm Jonah.
And I'm Aiden.
We're tuning in from Brookville, Maryland.
And Boston, Massachusetts.
Hi, we're the Landaus, Robin
and Laurent, and
we're watching from Hampton Bays, Long Island. Have a great FD Day.
Hi everyone.
We're the Adler family.
And we're watching from Melbourne, Australia.
Hi everyone, I'm watching from Boca Raton, Florida.
Hi, I'm Nuit. I'm from Israel. I really want to thank you for this amazing annual gathering. I also want thanks for improving the quality of our lives.
Watching from Toronto, Benny and Monica.
Hi.
We're the Brenners from New City, New York.
Hi, we are the Adamowskis. We are watching from Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to see all the faces from around the world. Welcome to FD Day. I'm Faye Ginsberg, for anyone who doesn't know me. In addition to my day job as a professor at New York University, I'm honored to be serving my 11th year as president of the Familial Dysautonomia Foundation. It's my pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the foundation, which was founded by a handful of families in 1951, shortly after FD was discovered in 1949. We have come a very long way since then, with families like you connecting from all over the globe and with vastly improved treatments and care for our community. For our fellow travelers from Israel and other parts of the world, we're excited to once again be offering live Hebrew translation for the full FD Day program. Thank you so much to our excellent interpreters, Dan Koenig and Shulamit Haran. To access them, simply click on the globe icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen and select Hebrew. If you'd like to use closed captions for English, the icon is next to the globe. For my family, this has been a particularly difficult year. Our daughter, Samantha, passed away last September in her 33rd year. On her exercise bike, she was belting out the Miley Cyrus anthem, The Climb, when she experienced cardiac arrest, leaving us without pain, but with a hole in our universe. Like her FD peers, Sam lived far past her predicted lifespan of 10, and thanks to her extraordinary medical care through the Dysautonomia Treatment Center, we are just incredibly grateful for the time she had. Despite the challenges of FD, she had a remarkable and joyful life, was a beloved friend and relative to many, and a committed spokesperson for FD since the age of 10. The best way I can think of to honor her memory has been to sustain my commitment to the FD community, ensuring that expert medical care and other supports that the foundation provides are always there. We're starting a poll, so I hope that you are enjoying video greetings from today's FD families around the world. Please tell us where you're watching from and take a minute to respond to the poll that's popping up on your screen. Oh, it's filling up, I can see that. And just as a reminder, it's our 38th annual FD Day and our 4th virtual version of this event, which allows so many more people to participate. I'm currently sitting in my messy office at NYU in Greenwich Village, Manhattan, and I see we have people checking in from Europe, Canada, Israel, United States, and probably more. So going virtual has enabled us to have a much more robust opportunity for all to be in conversation. These events have turned into lively community building occasions as we all had an opportunity to learn from our medical and scientific teams and to connect with each other. The foundation has achieved a number of milestones in our seven decades. Are we done with the poll? I just want to check. I think we are. So just to quickly go back over some of the milestones that we've achieved. In 1970, Dr. Felicia Axelrod, to many of you, launched the Dysautonomia Center at NYU Langone with our support. In the 21st century, FD was transformed from a fatal childhood disease to a chronic condition, allowing many people to reach adulthood. We've invested millions of dollars in research with significant results, starting with the identification of the FD mutation in 2001. Since then, the availability of genetic testing has resulted in the births of healthy babies worldwide to families where both parents carry the FD mutation. This genetic knowledge has been foundational to some of the cutting-edge emerging treatments that you're going to be hearing about today. Before turning things over to our next speaker, some thanks are in order. We are so fortunate to continue to have the talented leadership at the NYU Dysautonomia Center. Director, Dr. Horatio Kaufman, and Associate Director, Dr. Alejandra Gonzalez Duarte, Carl Seaman Professor of Dysautonomia Treatment and Research, who joined the center staff in 2021, bringing her outstanding knowledge of FD as both a clinician and a researcher. Thanks as well to Dr. Patricio Millar Vernetti and our extraordinary nurse practitioners, Kaya Dalamo and Zina Khan. In addition to her medical talents, Kaya organized the FD Artist Awards for today, which I'm sure you're eager to hear. Our gratitude also goes to Program Coordinator Leanne Lugg, who keeps all the balls in the air, and Program Assistant Meggie Keepers, and Social Work Intern Matt Hertzberg. We're profoundly appreciative of all of them, as well as the rest of the team at the Treatment Center. We're also grateful to the ongoing contributions of our fantastic scientific advisory board, especially the dynamic leadership of our co-chairs, Dr. Adrian Gilbert, FD Parent and Vice President of Pharmaceutical Development at Neuroderm in Israel, and Dr. Francis Lefcourt, Letters in Science Distinguished Research Professor of Cell Biology and Neuroscience at the Montana State University and head of the Lefcourt lab there. We are blessed to have attracted such dedicated and brilliant people to our cause. Let me also express my appreciation to our foundation's devoted and resourceful board of directors who do so much to ensure that we maintain a consistent level of support for the Dysautonomia Center. Huge thanks to all of them and the many people they have motivated to contribute to our cause through lively events, social media campaigns, and our annual journal, raising not only money, but spirits and awareness as well. In particular, I want to acknowledge an extraordinary recent gift of $500,000 over 5 years for the Claire and Philip Wexler Research Fund, named in memory of board member Paul Wexler's parents. The fund is designed to support translational research initiatives that bring work from the laboratory to our community with the goal of enhancing and extending the lives of those with FD. The inaugural grant went to Dr. Frances Lefcourt to sustain her critical gene therapy research that you'll be hearing about soon, along with other significant projects. Finally, I'm so deeply appreciative of our extremely capable and dedicated executive director, Lainey Etkin, now in her 6th year. Thank you, Lainey, for your truly outstanding work and your leadership of the excellent foundation team, in particular, Abulena Prabhukaj, our fundraising and communications manager, who's been doing an amazing job with all the tech today, and Julia Weiner, who joined us last October as Development Operations Associate, who is in charge of the phones, making sure that everything's going on well behind the scenes. So once again, really profound thanks to all for their exceptional work throughout the year and today. And now I'd like to turn things over to our Executive Director, Lainey Etkin.
Good morning. I'm delighted to join Faye in welcoming everyone to FD Day 2023. Before moving forward with today's programming, I think it's fitting to take a moment to acknowledge Faye for her decade of service as president of the FD Foundation. I know that we are all grateful for her leadership, her wisdom, her diplomacy, her generosity, and especially for her steadfast commitment to the mission. Feel free to share your own personal message of appreciation to Faye in the chat. This is the FD Foundation's 38th year of hosting FD Day and our 4th year of offering this annual conference virtually. This is my 6th FD Day. How many FD Days have you attended? Please take a moment to answer the poll that appears on your screen now. And while you answer, I'll tell you a little bit about the platform that you're watching FD Day on. We are trying Zoom this year. And after 3 years of COVID, most of us are familiar with Zoom. But if for some reason you have any technical difficulties during the program, please call the Foundation office at 212-279-1066 or send an email to info@famdis.org. Julia Weiner from our team is standing by to assist you. You've probably already seen the chat function, so you know how to post a message if you need to do that. There is also a Q&A box where you can post questions at any time during the program, and we will be culling those questions and saving them for the Q&A later on in the program. We will try to get to as many questions as we can. And just really quickly, it looks like about 40% of the people that are watching have been to 1 to 5 FD days, about 25% 5 to 10, about 13% 10 to 20, about 15% 20 to 30, and about 6% have been to 30 or more. So that's a really interesting statistic. Thanks for sharing, everybody. That was fun. Okay, so moving on. I've often seen FD referred to as the disease that no one has heard of. So today on FD Day, let's make some noise. Let's all boost FD awareness and post on our favorite social media channel using the hashtag FD Day. Let everyone know we are here. Now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our very generous FD Day sponsors. Heartfelt appreciation to our partners, Faye Ginsburg and Fred Myers, Howard and Tova Weiser, and the Sonnenschein family, and to our supporters, Daniel, Dina, and Rafi Landau, Laura, Tom, and Barbara Bale, Town Total Compounding Center, and to our friends, David and Chaya Katzenstein, and Gary and Barbara Friedman, and the Zucker family. We are so grateful to all of you. Support from these donors helps offset the cost of FD Day, enabling the foundation to dedicate more of our resources to medical care, scientific research, education, and outreach, as well as community building programs and activities. It's not too late to join. If you'd like to support FD Day or contribute to the FD Foundation, please scan the QR code that you can see on the screen now, or visit the FD Day event page at any time during or after FD Day. As Faye mentioned earlier, one of the key benefits of keeping FD Day virtual is that we can truly embrace the international scope of our FD community and include families, clinicians, researchers, and friends from all over the world. The FD Foundation here in New York is proud to partner throughout the year with our international chapters in Israel, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Today, we have a special message from the FD organization in Israel, and for the first time, we will hear about new work underway in Mexico.
I am Dvir, chairman of the board of the Israeli Association. Every year around this time, I start to get a little nervous because I know I'll have to struggle with English on the occasion of the FD Day. But I'm sure you will be patient with me and my English, since we are all one family, because probably we all had a common great-grandmother. Okay, anyway, the highlight of the past year was a crowdfunding event that we held, and the result of which, as well as the enthusiastic participation of most of the association's members, pleasantly surprised us. Thanks to the donations we raised, we are financing an important part of Professor Miguel Weil research to find a cure for FD, and we also have purchased medical equipment for the use of association's members who will need it. Among other things, we purchased a portable oxygen generator that we will borrow for flights, and enough batteries to even fly with it to you, so be prepared, we are on our way. Besides, we are expanding the activities of the associations for the people with FD and their families, and with the help of our volunteer at the medical center, we are increasing more and more the amount of data we contribute and add to the natural history database that is so important for all of us. I wish everyone good health and an interesting, educational and successful FD Day, and see you next year. Bye.
Hello, I'm Mario Briceño. I'm a neurologist and autonomic disorder specialist from Mexico. Last year, I had the honor to meet and be part of the FD community during my stay at the NYU Dysautonomia Center as an invited professor. Inspired by that, I have the goal right now of expanding the knowledge about FD and giving quality care to Mexican patients with this condition. So I'm developing a new FD center at the National Institute of Neurology and Neurosurgery in Mexico City. I'm really happy to be joining FD Day today.
It was wonderful to hear from our colleagues in Israel and for the first time in Mexico. Thank you. And now we'd like to hear from everyone again with another poll. What is your relationship to FD? And while we're waiting for those results to tabulate, let's take a quick overview of today's program. In just a few moments, we will hear updates on FD medical care from Drs. Horacio Kaufman and Alejandra Gonzalez Duarte and their expert clinical team at the Dysautonomia Center at NYU Langone. The segment after that will feature presentations from several of our esteemed scientists providing update on their current research. Next, we have reserved about 45 minutes for a live Q&A with our clinicians and scientists. Some of you sent questions in advance. If you have questions during the program, you may add them to the Q&A box. We will be monitoring the box throughout the day and will share questions with the panel as time allows. Following the Q&A, we will meet this year's Distinguished Award winners, view a presentation of the FD Day art competition, The World Through My Eyes, and present FD Champion Awards. Immediately following conclusion of the FD Day program, we will offer a schmooze session for parents and an after party for people with FD. Both of these programs will be hosted on Zoom meetings so everyone can see and interact with one another. More details on this later. Okay, now, looks like about half the people that are watching have a child with FD. About 20% of the people watching have FD. There were a few grandparents watching, some doctors, and some significant others. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Zenith Khan and Kaya Dalamo, our wonderful nurse practitioners at the center at NYU Langone, who will introduce the clinical portion of today's FD Day program.
Hello, shalom, and good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all here today. Today, I'm going to be introducing, and we're going to hear from some of our amazing clinical staff here at the NYU Dysautonomia Center who dedicate their lives and our research and doing clinical care for patients and families living with FD.
And this is Zenith Khan, and my name is Kaya Dalamo. First, you'll be hearing from our director, Dr. Kaufman, and then you'll be hearing from the co-director, Dr. Alejandra Gonzalez Duarte, then also Dr. Patricio Millar, ophthalmologist Dr. Leela Raju, nurse practitioner Zenith Khan, and then finally the social worker student Matthew Hertzberg. And here is Dr. Kaufman, who will be talking about our FD community.
Hi, good morning everybody, or good afternoon, depending which part of the world you're in. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as you heard, welcome to FD Day 2023. That is the 38th annual meeting, and is my personal 17th FD Day. As many of you remember, because you have been there, it is since 1985, on the second Sunday of June, that the FD community meets to celebrate another year and find out about the latest medical news. As many of you remember, FD used to be in New York at NYU in person, face to face, but this, as you heard from Lainey, is the 4th year that FD Day occurs online. Well, we thought that the benefits of watching from home were big enough for so many families that we kept this annual event online. Of course, we, the staff at the center, and we assume many patients and families, nevertheless, they still miss the warmth of seeing each other in person and the dinner with patients that we had before, and many of us miss that. So perhaps in the future, and it depends on your input, we will organize some type of hybrid event. Something will combine the face-to-face with online event. As you saw, we went full Hollywood this year, and we have 2 MCs, Kaya and Zenith, our star NPs. So, as every year, I would briefly start with the statistics and review some of these numbers for you. Well, there are 3 new FD patients in our database. There's a boy and a girl in Israel and a girl in Australia who's 10 months old. And you saw in the video, you saw her mother and this very sweet girl. She's one of our new patients. Altogether, there are 301 people with FD around the world that we are in direct contact with. Now, the youngest person with FD is less than a year old, is this sweet girl I just mentioned. She's 10 months old. And the oldest patient with FD is 66 years old, and she lives in the US. 101 people are younger than 25-year-old, and 200 are older than 25. And if you look here at the sex distribution, there is slightly more females than men, just small amount. Now, where are around the world the patients with FD? Well, it's truly, as you would expect, an international community. They are distributed, people are distributed in 14 countries, in Israel, the US, the United Kingdom, Canada, Argentina, Australia, Germany, Mexico, Brazil, Austria, Turkey, Belgium, and France. Quite a distribution. Now, this has been a very active year at the FD Center, both in clinical activities and also in a number of studies. We continue to see many of you via telehealth, but also many patients are now again traveling to the center. And of course, we are always happy to see you. Now, some of the main clinical and study activities that go on at the center are described in the yearly booklet. I'm showing you in the slide the cover of the 22-23 booklet. As you see, this, or as Lenny will show you, the booklet is available online for anybody to download, and you will also receive a hard copy on the mail or through email. So I will not go, we have just little time, so I will not go over all the activities. I just want to briefly update you on some of the new treatments, and you'll have the opportunity to hear more, not only in the research or read more in the research booklet, but also ask the investigators during the Q&A. So let me remind you something I do every year, that there are 2 types of treatments. There is the symptomatic treatment, that is the one that targets symptoms, things that you feel, and the idea is to make you feel better right away. The other type of treatments are the disease-modifying treatments that do not target the symptom, but actually the cause. And the goal of this treatment is to prevent or reverse, when possible, the progression of the disease, and this may not make you feel immediately better. So we are working on both types of treatments at the center. One we had focused on because it's one of the biggest problems and is a real unmet need. We still cannot treat the crisis in a perfect way. Particularly, we cannot treat them at home, or it's difficult to treat them effectively at home. So, as you know, many autonomic crises happen without apparent cause, meaning they are not triggered by infections or other medical stressors, and as you know yourself, they remain a very disabling problem for people with FD. So a new clinical trial that should start this month after a long preparation and administrative and legal issues, we're going to start the new trial using Precedex or dexmedetomidine. As you know, Precedex has been a game changer, as many of you have experienced personally. It relieves the symptoms of autonomic crisis very quickly. Now, the main limitation is that you need to be in the hospital. So because dexmedetomidine or Precedex requires IV administration. So we can still think that we can change that it's possible to try this medication at home. Therefore, the trial will be using a new formulation of sublingual dexmedetomidine at home. So if you experience an autonomic crisis, you will make a video call to the center and one clinician will guide you from there. While we are monitoring and seeing your symptoms, we will measure your blood pressure, your heart rate, and the severity of the crisis. And according to that, we will make a decision whether to take the sublingual film. And then to assess the effectiveness of the treatment, we will be using a new scale, not just blood pressure and heart rate, but we are trying this new scale that will measure the severity of symptoms. And again, we hope to start this trial within the next 30 days. Let me briefly tell you about disease-modifying treatments. These continue to being developed. And as you all know, ELP1 is a protein that is reduced in FD. The reduction of this protein is due to a gene mutation, the one that was discovered by Sus Lagerhaupt, and is where the blueprint of this protein is located. There is an abnormality there. So this abnormality, this mutation, results in low levels of normal ELP1 protein. Now, the problem is that when this protein is in low levels during the development, during embryogenesis, when the fetus is being developed, there are some neurons that never develop properly. Now, in addition to that, during life, this low protein also affects the survival of some of these neurons. So our goal by correcting the genetic defect is to increase the level of this neuron, this protein, and prevent the progressive degeneration of neurons in the retina and in the ones that innervate the muscles that give you a sensation, what's called proprioception, and we believe that we could prevent the abnormalities of this. So why are we using these two measures? Well, because they are the ones that we can assess effectively, and we expect with this genetic treatment to prevent the reduction of visual acuity, and meaning the blindness that can develop and the abnormalities in balance. Now, what are the approaches? The approaches to fix the splicing defect or the mutation defect and produce more protein, there are effectively three. These I'm just using these slides to repeat what I told you, that the idea is that disease-modifying drugs will prevent the neuronal loss in the retina and the loss of proprioceptive neurons in the dorsal root ganglia. So there are three complementary approaches, and you will hear about these more. The simplest treatment to correct splicing is with a drug that can be taken by mouth. That's a small molecule and is derived from kinetin, a compound that you heard a lot about that was first reported by Sue Slagerhout to correct splicing in 2004, 18 years ago. Now, that molecule went through a lot of changes, and there is one that has now been selected. We are completing the toxicology and other studies to try them in patients. Now, Sue and Elisabetta have secured funding for these from the NIH, and we are actively working to have this done. They will tell you more details. The second possibility, or the second route that is also complementary, is the use of what's called an antisense oligonucleotide. Now, antisense oligonucleotides are small molecules that bind to RNA or DNA and can correct the splicing defect. We are using one that was developed by Adrian Krainer a few years ago. And then there is a foundation called the N. Loren Foundation that has been working with us for the last 2 years to perform all the studies, including the toxicology, to try this initially in one patient, and we hope in a few months that will start. One of the limitations, although for an ASO, is that it requires intrathecal administration. Will have to be given with a spinal tap. So as I tell you, this trial, we start with one young patient, and based on the results, we hope to be able to extend this treatment to others. Now, in addition to the third complementary strategy is to use viral vectors with the normal gene or a part of that gene injected directly in the blood or in the eye to correct the genetic defect. And Francis Lefcourt, Sue Slagerhout, and Elisabetta are together working on this alternative, which is also quite interesting, and it still requires a lot of work. But we hope in the future to be able to do that. Again, you will hear more about this. And we expect to impact both vision and inability or difficulty walking in patients with this. So let me finish here by telling you again that a lot of details of what we are doing and what's going on at the center is written in the yearly booklet. You see the cover here. I hope you browse through it, and any questions you have, contact the center, and we'll be happy to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So thank you very much, and I leave you now with Dr. González Duarte. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaufman, for all of your care and your insight. Next, we will have Dr. Alejandra González Duarte, our co-director, who will be talking about clinical care in FD.
Hey, hi, hello. I am very happy to be here, and I hope that you can run the presentation. Hello, everybody, and welcome to FD Day. My name is Alejandra González Duarte. I want to persuade you that caring for FD is much a science as a precision skill. that having FD is not equivalent to giving the same treatment always, as many variables take place in each individual, and that there are no identical cases. Despite how similar FD may sound, each person has a unique condition and requires their own personal approach. Previously, medicine was seen as the ability to understand the body like a machine clock, by separating its parts into individual pieces. Linearity brought a degree of predictability, meaning that a known input ought to produce a similar effect repeatedly, assuming a cause-to-effect pathway. If I have a risk factor A, I will have disease B, and thus I should receive treatment C. This is a very simplistic view of the complexity of the human body, and the notion of one gene, one disease was disregarded, as we all know that mutations, such as the one found in FD, affect multiple and apparently unrelated systems. Complexity science is a novel conceptualization of disease and interventions to prevent and treat diseases and promote health. These interventions are far from the simplistic concept of linearity and encompass lack of hierarchies, self-organization, and organ cross-talking. Adaptation allows the system to modify its structures through self-organization and cope with environmental forces or influences. For example, the rise in temperature will change the behavior of cold-blooded animals to reduce heat production. An example of adaptation in FD is the constant body sway of patients while standing to promote muscle contractions and pump blood to the brain as a response to their low blood pressure. Since these systems are not passive and adapt to the organization process, they are not always predictable, and one action changes the context of other agents. As a result, the system may yield novel properties. In one word, each body will have its own rules. Self-organization. The human body has several organ systems and subsystems that are embedded. They interact with one another through a range of diverse pathways. Chemical interactions, for example, the production of dopamine resulting in retching and vomiting, diffusion of chemicals during the tissue planes like the production of tears that nourish the eyes, neuronal connections like in the increase in heart rate and blood pressure mediated by the baroreflex, immune pathways, hormones, cytokines, just to name a few. These systems uniquely interact with one another in each person, adapting to the changing context and giving rise to the emergence of new properties in the body of each patient. A feature of this relationship is nonlinear dynamics. A minor insult, for example, a gastric bleeding from a stress ulcer, can have catastrophic consequences for one patient and be disregarded by others. Lack of hierarchy. Each subsystem has a different way of communicating. The nervous system through the nerves, the endocrine system through the hormones, etc. The links between each system are relative, and their importance changes with time. The hierarchical paths evolve constantly. For example, when there is a fear response, the heart, muscle, and nerves will overcome the kidneys producing urine. Not that the urine system closes completely, but is less critical during danger. Organ cross-talking. Organ cross-talking can be defined as the complex and mutual biological communication between distant organs, mediated by signaling factors. This novel concept encompasses the close relationship between systems not noticed superficially. For example, the microbiome and the brain. This is especially true in FD, where we found that the gut flora differs in each patient and even between them and their relatives. In conclusion, complexity sciences are aimed to demonstrate the human body systems that are convoluted and prone to chaos if modified in depth. A system may be susceptible to a particular condition, and a slight difference in this condition can lead to widely divergent outcomes, including catastrophic consequences under circumstances reminiscent of a perfect storm. Since several subsystems interact simultaneously in a combination unique to that human being, the manifestations are also unique, which accounts for the subtle difference in presentation with a similar disease process. Thus, one person may have autonomic features such as sweating, nausea, retching during an autonomic crisis, while other may have minimal autonomic features but will produce other changes in the body. Personalized therapy should consider this aspect and not be limited to identifying solely the patient's genetic constitution, which is one of the many variables determining therapeutic efficacy. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez Duarte. And next we'll be hearing from Dr. Patricio Millar on clinical care versus clinical trials here at the Familial Dysautonomia Center.
Hi, good morning. I'm very excited to be here in FD Day and to see so many people joining from all over the world. So today I'm going to be talking about a question that we often get asked during FD annuals, which is this test part of my clinical care or is it part of a clinical study? And really the answer is very simple. It's both, because at every visit, we make sure that we integrate every aspect of your clinical care and your history as an FD patient into clinical studies. And at the same time, we try to make sure that absolutely everything that we study in FD has a direct clinical benefit for your care. So this way, by thoroughly documenting every aspect of your care and of your FD history, we're able to look back and find associations that help us identify problems and how to better address them and treat them. So, for example, and you're going to see this in the FD booklet as much as of the research that we have been doing here, we found earlier this year that people with FD are much more likely to have gastric bleedings than people without FD. And when we started looking deeper into the causes of why this happens in FD, it seems that people who have more frequent or more severe autonomic crisis were more likely to have a gastric bleed at any time in their lives. So at the same time, more than 10 years ago, we started to have a better understanding of what happens during an autonomic crisis and what triggers an autonomic crisis. And part of that, we know that they're associated with an increase of noradrenaline, which is a hormone that is related with stress and blood pressure changes. So we know that this increase in noradrenaline is also associated with these high fluctuations in blood pressures that you very well know happen during autonomic crisis. So at the same time, when we looked at the kidney function of patients with FD, we found that these blood pressure fluctuations, these very high highs and lows, tend to worsen kidney function over time. For this reason, we started using carbidopa, which is a medication that helps reduce the levels of noradrenaline. And we now know that carbidopa works because when we look at these blood pressure monitors that you wear in your arms for a whole day, and we get the results back from the urine samples that you collect during 24 hours, we see that the carbidopa helps reduce the noradrenaline. Patients have less severe and less frequent crises, and this helps stabilize the blood pressure. So overall, it is now a common knowledge that high noradrenaline causes autonomic crisis with high fluctuations in blood pressure that increase the risk of gastric bleeding and kidney problems. But we also know that using carbidopa can help not only reduce the crisis, but hopefully also reduce the risk of gastric bleeding and kidney function in FD. And this knowledge is only possible thanks to the participation of over 300 patients with FD over the past 15 years, which makes FD truly a community that helps and cares for each other.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. That was really helpful, and I think it explained really a difference between clinical trials only and what we see with patients every day when they come in for their FD annuals. So thank you so much to all the patients and parents also for all of your patience with everything we do. Next, we're going to be hearing from our skilled ophthalmologist, Dr. Leela Raju, who provides expert care to patients with FD and care for their eyes.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Leela Raju, and I want to thank Dr. Kaufman and the team for inviting me to speak at FD Day. I hope that I'll give you some old and maybe new and interesting options for helping treat corneal disease in FD. I have no financial interest in any of the products that I will be presenting or talking about. So when we think of the surface of the eye, it's not just the tears that matter. It's the composition of the tears, it's how the eyelids work, and how do they work to spread the tears across the surface. So if one of these components is not working, you will have different aspects of the dry eye affecting either the surface or how quickly scratches heal, and it can lead to many different issues. Of course, the most important thing is prevention. If we can prevent scratches from forming in the first place, we're always in a better shape. So if we can recognize incomplete blink, which is pretty common, and also recognize when patients don't have pain, even though they have a scratch, that would suggest that the cornea is neurotrophic or essentially numb. And this can be tested in the office with a cotton tip or aesthesiometer, which is an instrument that can measure the level of sensitivity of the cornea. But when we know that these corneas are not sensing dryness appropriately, sometimes we will suggest punctal plugs, which is a small plastic insert that will help block where the tears drain, which is in the lower lid near the nose. Or we can even cauterize the punctum if the punctal plugs have not been as effective or staying in place. And in patients that have had recurrent erosions or concerns of corneal surface healing, we always want to ask about herpetic infections. The cold sore virus, unfortunately, really slows healing in many cases, and because a patient has FD does not mean that we don't have to think about how a cold sore virus might be affecting the healing. A big part of prevention is also making sure that the eye doesn't dry out overnight, and that can be done with moisture chamber or goggles, moisture chamber goggles that you see to the right there. And these can be purchased online, and they just help retain a moist environment around the eye, even if the eye is a little bit open, or maybe has something like CPAP blowing air into the eyes overnight, which will also dry them out. Another question I get asked a lot about for prevention is preservative-free or preserved artificial tear medications. And as long as they are only being used 5 times a day or less, a preserved artificial tear is fine. However, more than that, a preservative-free option is probably better and will be less likely to cause irritation from the preservatives themselves. Sometimes this prevention doesn't work and we have to treat abrasions that are not healing with amniotic membrane, which can be placed on the surface and promotes healing. Sometimes even a closure of the eyelids, even for a short period of time, is necessary, either done by a stitch that is removed or a glue that helps close the lids or a piece of tape that is done periodically in order to make sure that the eyelids cover the area of the non-healing surface and it has time to be protected and heal on its own. Some newer modalities that are available to us now are lifitegrast, also known as Xiidra, and 0.09% cyclosporin, known as Cequa. These are similar to other medications that you may have heard of called Restasis, and they do promote decreased inflammation on the surface and can be a long-term adjunct to help prevent abrasions and worsening dry eye. There's also a nasal spray called Varenicline, which has been shown to promote tear production and maybe a newer modality that can be used with other medications. In patients that have abrasions, I have been recommending Trehalose containing artificial tears such as TheraTears Extra or Ivisia, which are over the counter. These medications have been shown to help heal an abrasion, in my experience, a little bit faster than the wide variety of other artificial tears that are available. In patients that have very constant dry eye and it's leading to repeated abrasions or very dry areas, I recommend serum tears. And in the US, a company called Vital Tears will come to your house, draw the blood and separate it out from the serum and the cells and dilute it appropriately so that they can be used as eye drops. And the picture you see to the right is actually a patient of mine who had a non-healing epithelial defect, and with a combination of serum tears from Vital Tears and a tarsorrhaphy, this area did heal up. And a Another newer modality called a Cenergermin, which is recombinant human nerve growth factor, has also been shown to work very well in patients with neurotrophic keratitis, or the numb cornea. And it has shown to do quite well as compared to a control group to help heal up persistent epithelial defects. Scleral lenses are also now a very common part of my treatment for severe dry eye, because the contact does not sit on the surface but vaults over the cornea, and this allows a liquid reservoir to always be between the cornea and the outside world, and should hopefully prevent severe dry eye from causing recurrent scratches. There are many options and more cost-effective options as well than there used to be. However, it does require multiple fittings to make sure that it is comfortable and that the patient is able to take the contact lens in and out. So my take-home points are that ocular surface protection is the most important, especially while sleeping. If a patient has CPAP and it's blowing air into the eyes, you want to make sure that there's no leak around any of the masks, and also protect the eyes either with ointment or these moisture chambers that I discussed earlier. So this goes to show you that it's usually a combination of treatments that really keeps the eye protected and prevents worsening issues. And we really want to treat any scratches very early in FD, because unfortunately they can become easily persistent, and the cornea does not react well to not having an intact surface, and it can lead to thinning of the cornea and even worse problems. So the faster we get the cornea surface healed up, the better off the patient feels and does, and it is something that we need to continually pay attention to. I want to thank the team again for the invitation to speak, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raju, for all of your insight and all of your care for patients with FD. We really see how vision is has such a huge correlation between patients' quality of life, their ability to walk around, their independence. So we really try to focus hard on making sure that we're able to help them as much as we can.
Absolutely. And while there are really severe problems in the eyes in FD, we know there are so many treatments that are really effective. So if you have any questions about this, please contact us after FD Day. And next, we'll have a special presentation from our very own nurse practitioner, Zenith Khan. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Many of you know me. My name is Dr. Zenith Khan. I'm a nurse practitioner here at the NYU Dysautonomia Center, where I've served this incredible population over the last 4 years. Through my time here, I've seen remarkable individuals who, despite living with FD and going through a worldwide pandemic, have shared how their jobs are a significant source of joy in their lives. Today, we'll be discussing education and career paths and advice of real people who are living with FD. As we know, people with FD have a wide range of physical and intellectual capabilities. We are inspired by many people with FD who have obtained education from universities, colleges, and technical schools. Many people with FD described having their job as fulfilling, rewarding, and helps them feel like everyone else their age. Their jobs allow them to serve in their communities and give back to their families, and jobs acts as a way to continue with socialization that often gets cut after K-12 schooling is complete. We interviewed a sample of 8 patients with FD, and they shared the following. 37% of them completed a bachelor's degree, 37% completed some college or an associate's degree, and 25% of them did not go to college, however, did not feel like they needed college in order for them to be successful at their current places of employment. People with FD hold a diverse range of jobs, including being a cashier, a barista, a multimedia manager, a medical office receptionist, a veterinary receptionist, an artist, a business owner, a CEO, an IT support, and a disabilities activist. Majority of the participants mentioned that they received on-the-job training, which helped them be successful in their current roles. When asked what advice they would give to someone with FD who's looking to start working or transition into a new job, participants responded, "Never stop learning, stay up to date with technology." One person said to educate yourself about different adaptive devices and accessibility functions you can use. For example, he has some impaired vision, so he uses a screen reader or uses Siri. Another person said, don't let FD define you. Go into a job that you really like and do your best. I enjoy working because I feel like I'm treated like everyone else and everyone is beyond nice. Don't let your disease stop you from having a job. And one other person said, don't be afraid of starting a job. Do what you enjoy and try to find an agency to help someone with disabilities find a job if you're still looking. So, what resources exist? Some participants mentioned that they use state-run services such as the Disability Resource Coordinators through the Department of Labor Career Services, who can help with career counseling, resume development, career workshops, computer and internet access, and placement assistance. These coordinators can also provide counseling to job seekers who receive SSA benefits. So what should you consider if you're starting a job or embarking on a new career path? People with FD have a variety of skills and passions, as well as unique challenges and concerns, which can be associated with employment. Before starting a job, it's important for the person with FD and their families to consider some of these questions. What skills are useful for this job? What's the minimum and maximum education required? What are the physical and mental demands? What are the characteristics of work? And what resources exist that can help with funding and support? So how can the Dysautonomia Center help you in your future job? First, we can help optimize your health to perform certain jobs. We can provide letters of medical necessity for workplace accommodations, and we can help you get better faster and bounce back. Thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed seeing you all.
Wow, that was really inspiring. Thank you so much, Zenith. I really learned a lot. I didn't know about the resources through the Department of the State Employment Services.
Absolutely. I know a lot of parents and caregivers, they have questions. Well, you know, if my child starts working, will I be able to still qualify for SSA? Will I still be able to qualify for all the medical benefits that I receive? So these coordinators can really help go through exactly how many hours you can work a week, and also help you find placement in terms of jobs that fit your capabilities and capacities. So
amazing. And it was so inspiring hearing from people with FD saying, go after the job you like and do your best.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring. Perfect.
Absolutely. So next we have our incredible social work intern, Matthew Hertzberg, who recently started a caregiver support group and will be sharing more information about caregivers and FD.
Hi, I'm Matthew Hertzberg, the social work intern and MSW graduate student at the Dysautonomia Center. Over the last 8 months, I've had the privilege of getting to know several FD patients and their families through weekly one-on-one therapeutic talk sessions and monthly virtual caregiver support groups. Nobody knows FD like our parent caregivers. Caring for a loved one can be a profoundly fulfilling experience, providing deeper relationships, self-efficacy, a sense of purpose, and pride. But the physical and emotional demands of time, energy, and responsibility take a great toll and can overshadow the positive aspects of caregiving. Prioritizing the health of their child, parents sacrifice sense of self and may be left feeling isolated, underappreciated, and yes, burnt out. The FD caregiver support groups offer a safe, judgment-free space for parents to share with each other the ups and downs their families encounter day to day. While it may be hard or impossible for those outside the FD community to fully appreciate these challenges, our encounters in group bring together parents from around the globe who get it. Just knowing there are others out there facing the same issues is a source of comfort. Parents tell me they look forward to these groups, if for nothing else than being part of a community. Often at the end of these meetings, parents express a sense of togetherness, of feeling less isolated, and gratitude. FD parents are so grateful to be offered this group. While my time at the center is short, it is my hope that the FD caregiver group will continue to grow and evolve to support, educate, and empower parents at all stages of their FD journey. If you haven't attended one of our virtual support groups, there's still time and all are welcome. To be added to the email list, please reach out to me directly or the Dysautonomia Center, and I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Wow, that was really nice hearing from you, Matthew. Thank you so much. Parents are really everything, and we learn so much from parents, and they're really just the rock and the foundation of care for FD.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gonzalez Duarte always says, you know, ask the parents first. They are the experts. And, you know, it's so true. All of the information and the vital care that you guys give every single day, it's truly inspiring. So thank you again, Matthew. Next, we're going to be hearing from our Scientific Advisory Board. We have Dr. Adrienne Gilbert, Dr. Frances Lefcourt, and Dr. Sue Slagenhoff.
Hi, it's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. Happy FD Day. It's just an honor and a pleasure to be here as part of this community, especially to hear everybody's presentations. It's such a courageous community, an inspirational community, and there's so many key figures who play such critical roles in trying to help improve the lives of people with FD. So I'm here wearing two hats. One as a neuroscientist whose lab studies FD and is interested in understanding what's going wrong at a cellular level in FD, and also developing therapeutics to potentially help members of the FD community, and also as an FD family member. So I'm all of your cousin. I grew up with two cousins who had FD. So I'm going to share my screen. So what we have been interested in is, as I said, trying to understand at a cellular level what's going on in FD. And if once we can figure out what is going wrong, can we develop ways to improve the health of neurons, which are the cells that primarily die in FD. And as Dr. Kaufman mentioned, some of these neurons are dying in utero, and some of these neurons are going to die postnatally. So, you know, there's different strategies as to which cells we can try to rescue at different stages. But what you're looking at here in this photograph, actually in purple or in magenta, these are all the neurons in the retina that will die in FD. So this is from a mouse retina. And not all of them will die. And that's the good news, because there's many that we can save. And so the goal is, or one goal for FD is, if we can save these retinal neurons, then we could prevent the loss of vision. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So one way to do that is, as Dr. Kaufman mentioned, is to introduce a healthy copy of the gene that is mutated in FD. And we know that the gene has two different names. One is ELP1, ELP1, and one is IKB-KAP. And that gene is mutated in people who have FD. And so the goal is, can we improve the function of that gene? And there's different ways to do that, as Dr. Kaufman mentioned. And one way is, a way we've been working with, is to do what's called gene therapy, where you introduce a healthy copy of that gene. And so you put a healthy copy of that gene in a virus, and then you can inject that virus into the body, depending on what part of the body you want to rescue. And so in our case specifically, we are interested in trying to prevent the visual problems from developing. And so you can do what's called an intravitreal injection into the eye of the virus. And this method has proven already very successful for treating other retinal diseases. So for example, the FDA in the United States has already approved gene therapy for another retinal disease. And that was about, over 5 years ago, and those patients are still doing well. There's also been gene therapy has been approved for a really devastating disorder called spinal muscular atrophy, and for other disorders. And it turns out that, especially doing the eye injections, first of all, you only have to inject once over the lifetime of the person. And those injections seem to be very safe and well tolerated. And now gene therapy is in trial for numerous other genetic diseases, including other retinal disorders. So we've developed in our lab mouse models for FD, and we've now shown, and we have a paper that's been submitted for publication, that introduction of a healthy copy of the ELP1 gene in the eye of a mouse that has FD can reduce or prevent the death of about 30% of the retinal neurons. And so to us, this is proof of concept that this approach could work. And these were just using sort of off-the-shelf components, but certainly we believe this method can be optimized and developed for the clinic. So this work has been a collaboration on the gene therapy with Dr. Claudio Punzo at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And the work was funded both by the NIH and from the generous funding of the Claire and Philip Wexler Research Fund from the Familial Dysautonomia Foundation. So thank you very much for all your support. And so I just want to show you here what this looks like in practice, because we're very excited about this. So I told you that it can save neurons, but I also want to show you what that looks like. So we did a single injection of the virus and we wait 3 months and we come back and then we look at the retina in the mouse and we count the number of retinal neurons to see, do we have more, do we have less, and what do they look like? So this picture here on the left is a picture of retinal neurons. Those in the first image I showed you, they were magenta, but here they're white. So these are the retinal neurons. And what you're seeing in red here is that they're expressing the human ELP1 protein. So this is a mouse retina, so it should not express any human ELP1 protein. But in fact, we're showing that after injecting the virus, these mouse neurons now express this human ELP1 protein. So that tells us two things. One, that we can express a healthy copy of the ELP1 gene in a retina. And two, that these are really healthy looking neurons. So that had also been a concern, that if you overexpress a protein that's not normally, that you're driving artificially, essentially, is that going to be unhealthy for the cells? But in fact, these cells that are in red here that have the arrows look very, very healthy and normal. So we are very optimistic that this project can be developed further. And so what are the next steps? So the next steps are that 2 other labs are going to get involved in this project. One is the lab of Anil Chakuri, who has been a postdoc with Sue Slagenhout. And he's going to pursue doing gene therapy in the retina. He's setting up his own lab now at Harvard. And then another collaborator, Nadia Zeltner, who has a lab at University of Georgia, and she's really interested in the autonomic crises and trying to see if gene therapy could help mitigate the severity of the autonomic crises. And so she would like to develop gene therapy to treat systemically. So I am passing the baton to these 2 people. I personally am retiring from my lab, but I'm going to stay on as co-advisor of the Scientific Advisory Board with Adrian, and very happy to try to help shepherd these projects and make sure that we can optimize this treatment as a potential therapy for FD. So lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of you for your support and to the wonderful FD community. And I hope my wonderful co-director, Adrian Gilbert, reappears soon to help steer us forward. But thanks again to all of you. You really inspire me every day.
That was so wonderful, Dr. Lefcourt. Thank you so much. And next we'll hear from Dr. Adrian Gilbert.
Thank you, Francis. I'm sorry I didn't jump in quite when I was supposed to before. I had a small Zoom crisis. But as with FD crisis, I rang the center and Abulena was very, very helpful and she sorted me out. And I'm really pleased to be back, and just shows you no matter how many times you practice, sometimes these things just don't always work out. Anyway, thank you, Francis. That was really inspiring. I did catch the gist of your presentation. It was really, really interesting to hear. And then it's going to go forward in other laboratories. And I think now we're just going to hand it over to Sue Slagonot, who's as we all know her, who's the scientific director of the Mass General Research Institute. And she's also a professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School, who's going to talk some very exciting news on her new development of a small molecule compound for familial dysautonomia. So, Sue.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I'm glad to see you back in Zoom land with us. I loved hearing Francis's presentation and all of the presentations this morning, and I'm really pleased to be here with all of you. I have worked on FD. My lab has worked on FD for quite a long time. I think I've been talking at FD Day for perhaps 30 FD days, maybe 30 years. I came to Mass General, started working on FD in 1991, so it's been quite a long time. For those of you who have been around that long, you'll remember I used to come and talk about George. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit of the work that my lab is doing most recently. So I will share my screen. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer. You heard some of this from Horatio, but I want to remind you of the work that we've been doing for many, many years, and that is trying to treat something called defective splicing using a drug. So we're developing a drug to fix actually the mutation that causes FD. So you might remember that genes are broken into pieces along our DNA. And this mutation in FD, what happens is it causes these pieces not to be assembled properly. So we need piece 20 to come after 19 and before 21, like this, 19, 20, 21. But this mutation in FD causes this number 20 piece to be skipped. And what happens is we do not get any ELP1 protein made when this is skipped. We need exon 20 to be in there in order to get ELP1 protein. So my lab, ever since we first identified kinetin, has been working to find a drug that will connect in some way to this area and make sure that this exon 20 or this piece 20 is always included. And then what our goal will be is to then get more functional ELP1 protein, which you just heard a little bit about what is needed there. And so we have a drug called PTC680 that was made by a company called PTC Therapeutics, who have been great partners to both my lab and the FD Foundation for many years. They are continuing, although they're no longer developing this drug for to get it into patients. They've agreed to allow us to continue to move this forward. And so late last year, my team at Mass General and I applied for a grant from the National Institutes of Health called a Blueprint Neurotherapeutics grant. And I have number 2 on this slide because many of you who have listened to us for a number of years know that we were part of this program years ago following the identification of kinetin. We identified kinetin, and then we became part of this program to make new improved kinetin to try to make a better drug. And we've continued this work through this program and then partnered with PTC Therapeutics and identified this drug called PTC680. And this is the drug now we're trying to drive to the clinic. The title of our grant is Development of a Splice Modulator Compound for Familial Dysautonomia. So again, number 2, because we went back to the NIH and said, okay, now we have this really good drug in hand. Will you help us by forming a team and funding the work needed to hopefully get this to patients? So we have a development team that includes many people from my lab, people from the FD Center who you know, Horatio and Alejandra, NIH experts. We have drug development consultants from industry, and the team meets every other week. And we just kicked off this grant about a month ago on May 3rd. And this team meets every other week and to really do the studies and discuss what's needed to move this drug to the clinic. So what I've shown here, I don't expect you to understand what all of this means, but this table, but basically it shows you we have a lot of work to do, but we're optimistic. In year one, we will work on various studies needed so that we can make sure that this drug, so that we can synthesize this drug in a large enough amount so that we can further test this drug in our mice and continue to work towards getting a pre-IND meeting with the FDA. And then after the first year, we move into studies, IND enabling toxicology studies that will make sure that this drug is safe enough for us to give to our FD patients. We know that it works remarkably well to increase the levels of ELP1 protein, and that's our ultimate goal. And so, as I said, we're very optimistic. We have a lot of work to do, but we really hope that everything goes well. There's still, even though there's still a lot of things that could go wrong, as whenever new drugs are developed, there's many places along the way that some test or another can tell us that it's not the right drug for us. But we're very hopeful that we've already done a lot of testing on this drug, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get it into patients. This would be an oral drug. So one of the things that we're excited about this is that this would be a drug that patients could take easily on a daily basis at home. So that's our goal with this, is if we could come up with a drug in which we could have patients be able to be dosed every day at home that would increase ELP1 protein. So I really want to call out many members of my team. This is a bigger group. This is what I call the Slog and Hap Lab team and friends, but I really want to point out Elisabetta Marini, who's here, and Anil, who you just heard about, Anil Chakuri and Daddy Gao. All three of these individuals were postdoctoral fellows, and I, like Francis, although I'm not retiring, as Francis is, but we pass the torch. This is part of what we do, is train the next generation of scientists. And I feel that the FD community is remarkably lucky to have these three scientists who have now all started their own labs. They're all junior faculty members, and they've started their own labs, and they will continue the work on FD along with me. And so we're all lucky to have them because they have varied interests, varied expertise, and will bring new ideas and new thoughts to ways that we might begin to treat FD. So we're really lucky to have all of these people who are focused on FD. So again, I look forward to answering any questions that you might have, and I'm thrilled to be part of FD Day for so many years. And with that, I will end and turn it back to Adrian.
Thank you very much, Sue. I think, as according to my plan, I think we're now going to go over to the Q&A, if I understand correctly. So if our organizers can bring up the panelists for the Q&A. So I'm very happy that we've got us all together. We also have apologies from Bart, who wasn't able to join us this year from the treatment center in Israel. So I'm going to kick off questions with you, Horacio. How can patients enroll in the Precedex clinical trial, or in fact, any of the clinical trials that were mentioned here today?
Very good. I tried to answer that before, Adrian. Certainly, they should contact the center, and we'll be, more than happy to consider them. In the in the first stage of the trial, because of FDA and IRB requirements, we said that patients that had already received Precedex and showed that they had no untoward effects, only those would be accepted in the trial to use the Precedex at home. Of course, that can easily be overcome by trying Precedex while in the hospital and making sure that it works for them. We have not had any problem with Precedex in any patient, so we don't think there will be any problem with doing it at home. But as you heard also from Alejandra, there are a number of safety measures that we will be taking. Patients, their blood pressure and heart rate and general state will be monitored while they are at home. So call us, talk to us, and we'll be delighted to try to include you. We will send and distribute all the inclusion criteria very, very soon.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you very much. We do actually have interest from people patients, obviously outside of the US, who are also asking, can they join the trials? How could they do that?
You know, we would certainly like that Israel participates. And Adrian, I'm going to throw the hat to you. This is not the yarmulke.
I knew you were going to do that.
Of course, this is not the yarmulke. Is a hat on top of the yarmulke, and we need you, Adrian, to enroll BAT and the Israeli medical team to actively participate on this. As you know, I joined the center, it's going to be 18 years ago, and since then I've been trying to get the Israeli team fully committed. I think we are closer, and perhaps in the year number 20, that will actually happen.
Okay, there you go. I knew that was going to come back to me, that question. And I that's what we need to do. We need to get the Tel HaShomer Center fully engaged in the research, and that's our vision, is that the center in Israel and the center in NYU would work together with the other centers in complete partnership on developing and bringing the patients into these clinical studies.
Adrian, the Israeli team are fantastic clinicians. We are always in awe at their expertise and their ability to provide high quality care. So we want them to continue doing that, and we want to learn from them and them learning from us, and all working together.
Absolutely. I'm going to now turn to Sue. We have some questions based on the site. Firstly, Sue, I really enjoyed your presentation. I grasped the amazing progress that you've made, that you kicked this off. What I wanted to ask, the question that's come in, can we currently test the level of ELP1 protein in patients as a baseline? And another question was, are you looking into SGL2 inhibitors for chronic renal disease? So ELP1 protein patients baseline, and there's a question about SGL2 inhibitors for chronic renal disease. Sue.
Thanks, Adrian. And I'm actually going to phone a friend, and that is Alejandra too, because she's actually the one working on measuring ELP1 levels in patients. And yes, so with the help of PTC Therapeutics, they developed, with the help of people at the FD Center, a blood test where we can measure ELP1 levels in blood of patients and carriers. We've done some preliminary work on measuring that, and it is our hope that as we move forward with all of these different trials, that we will be able to use ELP1 as a measurement to see if treatments are working. Alejandra, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Slaughter-Haupt, for giving me the word. You are absolutely right. We're now also again measuring the ELP1 serum levels in the patients and in the family, and again having all these correlations to see how does that is associated with the function, either the nerve function or the deterioration of the clinical features. So I think that we will have amazing data, and it will be certainly one of the most robust endpoints that we will have going forward in these clinical trials.
Yes, so that's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting treatment. So these medications are medications that are usually used to treat diabetes, and the way they work is by increasing the excretion of glucose through the kidney. So you get rid of more glucose, and that helps reduce glucose levels in patients with diabetes. But apparently it's also helpful for people that have kidney problems and do not have diabetes. Because again, the way that the kidney gets rid of the glucose is by also getting rid of sodium. And this helps reduce slightly blood pressure and regulate the mechanisms in which the kidney receives perfusion, receives blood. And so, whereas it is very interesting and promising, we're a little bit concerned about how it could affect patients with FD, and we want to be very careful about if we consider to use this medication. And the reason behind that is because this mechanism in which the the kidney gets rid of sodium, it's also what happens when people have pressure natriuresis. When people have very high blood pressures, one of the mechanisms in which the body tries to counteract that is by increasing this sodium secretion, which in turn is going to result in a little bit of decrease in intravascular volume, some form of dehydration. On top of that, we know that people with FD have problems regulating the sodium concentrations to begin with, especially during autonomic crisis, and especially if, for example, they drink fluids that don't contain electrolytes or sodium as well. So further reducing the excretion of sodium, we really have a big concern that could create more problems for patients with FD. So again, it's very interesting. We need to take a very deep look into that, and if it can actually help people with FD without causing more complications or problems.
Yeah, I think the renal function, kidney function is an area which we all understand is very, very important in FD, and to maintain good renal function. Thank you very much. I want to come back to Alejandra now, and I want to ask her a question, a more basic question. If every patient is different, how do you decide who gets what treatment?
Thank you, Adrian. Hi. So that's a very convoluted question. The short answer is we have to analyze each patient, each list of medication, each reaction to each of the medications that they have, and then draw a conclusion. So there might be patients that will need, and this goes, for example, for dexmedetomidine. The Precedex, they might have very, very high doses, whereas others with a very small, mild dose, they will react. So it all depends on a lot of different factors, and that's why we sometimes take so long to discuss and to have the answers for some that might seem a very simple question.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Leela a question now, actually. I think you called it Vital Tears, which is basically the serum extract treatment. I know this is something that we've tried at home, and our doctors here in Israel at Tel HaShomer are extremely confident that it's going to help with FD, all of the issues that we spoke about. How much has that made an impact, in your opinion, in the treatment of corneal issues in the familial dysautonomia?
Yeah, I think the help that it, or the impact of healing up a non-healing defect cannot be really understated. The serum in our blood is just so much closer to what our natural tears are. And since, we're always trying to stimulate tear production, but if you aren't unable to do that, then, being able to replace it with something that's actually closer to our natural tears is the most important. And there's a lot of studies looking at the different components of the serum versus natural tears, and I think just how close they are is why it works so well. And it's 4 times a day, so it's something that I think it's not as frequent as you have to use some of the artificial tears, and that I think makes a big difference for utility and also just realistically what the family has to do or the patient has to do.
Yes, absolutely. Someone's actually added another question in the same area about pulse light treatment. Is that something that you're familiar with, or IPL?
Pulse what treatment, sorry?
Light treatment, IPL. I'm just reading the question that was put. Yes.
That's a good question. That has been shown to make some difference when there's inflammation more than anything. The little blood vessels that sometimes we see in the eyelids can give us a suggestion that maybe there's inflammation affecting the quality of the tears. But unfortunately, there's not any real evidence showing that it increases tear production, which is really what has to happen in FD. Yeah. So, dry eye causes inflammation, but usually when we talk about that, it's a different kind of dry eye.
Okay, that's very interesting. Inflammation, which is separate, which is part of the complication of the eye disease that we have. Horacio, what's the purpose of the autonomic crisis scale? Can you give us some background on that, please?
Sure. Many of you may be aware that when you do a study, a clinical study, you require what's called outcome measures, meaning you need a precise way to assess whether the drug you are using is effective or is not effective. So one of the outcome measures for the trial is whether we can end the crisis completely. But the FDA it's not happy with a yes or no. They want a scale that would measure also more details of the crisis. So we devised together with the whole team, and Kaya has been very instrumental in testing it, is a specific scale that takes into account the symptoms of FD and the severity. So each patient and the caregiver should rate that, and we are going to use that scale as a way to measure the effectiveness or lack of it of this trial with dexmedetomidine, sublingual dexmedetomidine.
That's a clear and an important use. Do you think that the disease-modifying treatments, Horacio, that we have under development, are they going to be organ-specific or just symptomatic? How do you think that affects the disease? Because we're looking at basically raising ELK1, but we don't really understand what raising ELK1 is going to do to an adult FD patient. What do you think is going to happen?
Very good question, Adrian. Again, because of what's called regulatory requirements, we need to identify specific symptoms or problems that we believe will improve, or if they don't improve, will not get as worse and as we would expect that they will. So we had to identify at least two problems that get worse over time after a person with FD is born, and see if that decline could be tempered or reduced. So the two that we identify, perhaps not because, they are disabling, but may not be the only problems, but those are two we can measure. One is the vision, and the other is the ability to walk, the coordination. So we know that vision after age 20 can have problems, and people with FD every year may have some visual problems. We expect to reduce or slow the worsening with genetic therapy. Of course, we would like to reverse the worsening, Adrian. But starting, we have a more humble goal, which is at least prevent the deterioration. So we will be focusing on vision and gait. Gait is the medical term for walking, for the walk. So again, we will look at the two functions, which are vision and walking. Needless to say, Adrian, we will be looking at everything, right? Like we tell the FDA, once we start giving this treatment, we will be analyzing and looking at each patient receiving this treatment. We will monitor them as hawks, meaning we will be over them trying to see everything, and we expect perhaps other things to improve as well. But again, aside from the science, there is what's called the regulatory or compliance part, so that the agencies allow you to use the drug. You have to choose what's called outcome measure. So the outcome measures are going to be vision and gait. But, and I know I'm repeating myself, we will also look at all the other variables. In fact, we will also look at renal function, at respiratory function, and frequency of crisis, as anemia. Everything we are looking at is potentially a target. Because as you mentioned, and Sue and Francis also mentioned, there are a number of abnormalities that could potentially improve, which we see in people with FD. Will those abnormalities improve when we correct the genetic defect? Adrian, we sincerely hope that that's going to be the case, but we had to choose some.
I think, I mean, you focused on gait and vision because they're measurable. But we're also, I think we talked hearing today, for example, of 3 different approaches: gene therapy, oligonucleotide given intrathecally in the spine, or an oral therapy. Now, they all give, they all raise ALK1, we hope. We certainly do in animals, and we hope they're going to do in patients. But we don't know what the difference is going to be, not the safety or the efficacy profile with regard to the patients clinically overall. And I think this is the real question that we'd love to know. And I think the design of the trial that you described is to capture as much information as we can based on a very small number of patients, obviously, because we're not going to run big clinical trials. Certainly, we don't have the patients, and it needs to start small. But I think it's a really exciting thought to think that these therapies could certainly be in the clinic very soon.
Something we need to keep in mind is that they are not mutually exclusive. Potentially they are complementary approaches. So let's say somebody could receive a piece of the gene, of the normal gene in the eye. They could also receive an ASO directly intrathecally, while at the same time take this drug by mouth. So potentially this is, look, it'll be fantastic the day we can start this treatment. Trust me, neither Francis nor Sue nor myself nor anybody in the team will sleep peacefully until we are able, after all these years, to offer these drugs to patients. Rest assured that if you are in a hurry, we are desperate. We are more in a hurry than you guys are. And every year we hope that is next year in Jerusalem.
All I can say is, whilst I'm involved in this, I'm a parent and my daughter is now 22, and I don't have any more time to wait for these treatments to come forward. I'm sorry, we have to do this as quickly as we possibly can and then think of another way to make it quicker.
We understand that.
I'm going to ask Sue now about the Resilience Project. There was quite a long question which was posted, which I won't repeat, but I understand, Sue, this is something that you're familiar with. Would you like to comment?
Yes, I'd be happy to mention it, because I think there's a lot of confusion about this particular project. So I haven't looked at it in quite some time, but you'll see in the chat, the Dornbergs, I believe, posted a question about this Resilience Project, where they identified someone from a very large DNA database, something like a public DNA database where people send in their DNA for analysis, like a 23andMe or Ancestry.com or something like that. I can't remember exactly which one it was. And what they identified was there was a person in that database that has 2 copies of the FD mutation. So we all know that they should have FD. But in the data that was submitted, it didn't say that they had FD. So the issue with this study, so there's no way to identify the person, and there was no way to recontact the person. And the disclaimer, so many of us who work on various diseases that were mentioned in that study were actually contacted before that study was published. And we had problems with it because we said the only way you could be sure that that is actually true would be to go back to the person and actually do some kind of clinical exam to find out if they did have FD or not. And in fact, that wasn't the case. So you can imagine what could have happened. I don't believe that someone who has 2 copies of the FD gene did not have FD. An FD patient could have sent their DNA in to a place like 23andMe or Ancestry.com and just not said that they had FD. I think that's likely what happened. The way they addressed it in the paper was they went ahead with the publication, but the way they addressed it was just to say that the information was based on the records they had at the time. And so the only way you could really be sure would be to look back. So I think that genetic studies like this can be very powerful. There's some beautiful work in Alzheimer's disease that shows that you can escape your genetic predisposition to develop Alzheimer's disease in a case where there's a mutation that causes a familial type. But what they did was they followed this woman until she was in her 80s and showed that she never got Alzheimer's disease, even though her mutation would have predicted that she should. The reason we haven't done more additional studies is the FD population is very small. I think when you have a lot of patients, thousands and thousands and thousands of patients, you could look for what we call genetic modifiers or other genes that may make some people milder and some people have a more severe disease, or maybe help make people not susceptible at all. However, we have such a small population that those studies have proven difficult to do.
It's a big subject, how we can gather the information. I mean, these days, this is what not all industries, including the pharmaceutical industry and everyone, is trying to make the most of the data that they generate.
Right.
You know, AI, as we call it, you know, artificial intelligence, and how you gather data and analyze it and collect it. And just like that in our field as well, we need to see what information there is that's out there in all of these databases, which we can use to better understand our disease and how we treat it.
So just a comment, I'm saying exactly the same Sue said. When the paper came out, we essentially did not believe that patient, that information was correct. Bottom line, it'd be great if we are wrong, but with the current state of knowledge, there is no way to have 2 copies of the mutated gene without having the clinical disease. So like Sue says, the answer to Dr. Dornberg is that this is probably a mistake. And we'll be delighted to be shown that it's not a mistake. Then we learn something. But so far, we can only be skeptical.
Thank you. I'm going to actually ask Alejandra a question now, a question that we were asked about vitamins and food supplements on the market. Do any of them actually help patients with familial dysautonomia?
Can you repeat what is in the market?
The vitamins and the food supplements that people take.
Oh, they vary so much. So they have to ask me one each patient because, you know, every composition of the bottle of vitamins and the combination with the clinical care of patients, and particularly also now we are adding onto the mix CBD and melatonin. So it kind of varies to each patient. So I wouldn't recommend, and I wouldn't dare to recommend anything if it wouldn't be for each case.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very clear answer. Dr. Raju, we've been asked, where can people purchase the moisture chamber that you described?
Sure. Actually, they're available online. Those pictures that I got are, I believe, off Amazon. So it should not be too difficult. I will say the glasses, though, are a company called 7 Eyes, which I also found on Amazon now, too. But the nice thing is they have foam on the inside of the lens. So it really kind of forms that same idea of keeping the eyes in a more humid environment, and the tears won't evaporate, hopefully, as quickly.
Okay. And just to say that I know there's a company called, here in Israel, there's a company called Alphanet. They have a shop and also online, and they sell most of the same products, surprisingly at similar prices. You know, these goggles that you wear at night with moisture and the different products, and they are available here. So if anyone needs to know about that, I'm aware of how they're sold here.
Just want to add, if you put some ointment in and then put the moisture chamber on, it does a miraculous job protecting the surface.
I'm going to jump back now to NYU, to the NYU team. People are asking about your telemedicine visit with patients outside of the US. Do you want to talk a little bit, either Alejandro or Horacio, about how you work with telemedicine and whether you do that with patients outside of the US?
Sure, we do. But should Kaya and Zenit, that they coordinate this? You know, I'd be happy to answer, but we have our Hollywood MCs.
Of course.
So, you know, telemedicine has been so instrumental for our population, not only patients that are local and, you know, live in the US, but also internationally. This year we did, you know, launch the UK telehealth services where we are able to see patients with that live in the UK. And, you know, we've had some really incredible parents and families step up to help put together a telehealth kit. And as you guys remember from a few other FD days, you know, we presented, it has the telemedicine kit we're able to do virtual assessments. We're able to look at heart rate, look at EKGs, look at wounds,
Heart and lung sounds,
measure pulmonary function, and really work closely with the local team. So it's, it's an adjunct in terms of the service, but also provide recommendations that we've seen be successful for many of the patients that, live out here in the US. So it's really incredible, I think, to not only be able to help these patients, but also to learn and see what a whole other subset of patients have been doing and how successful they've been. Something that I really learned a lot from the UK was a lot of the patients there live independently or have carers that live, close by to them. And, it really gave me a lot of inspiration and hope for our patients that are living on the stateside. And that's kind of what prompted my presentation today in terms of, helping FD patients really learn more about different career paths for themselves, different journeys for themselves. So yeah, I think that's been really great. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of success with telemedicine, both here, piloting it here in the US, seeing people in other states, reconnecting with people that we hadn't seen in many years, 10, 20, 25 years. So that was really, we had a lot of success with it, and seeing how easy it was for patients and their families to engage in that way and reconnect with the center was really encouraging. So then we opened up more telemedicine, like with a kit and a healthcare team in the UK. So definitely having that interconnectedness between the different sites in the UK, Israel, Australia, Mexico is definitely something that we're looking at, and being more global in that way. I definitely think it's possible and it's working well.
It's amazing when you think, how on one hand we all suffered from COVID, but COVID has really pushed us to reach out to people without having to meet them, and it's developed amazingly. Whether we're talking about just a Zoom today, but telemedicine is the way of the future for so many different patient populations, especially for FD.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think, something that Dr. Millar touched upon, the natural history, having all patients a part of the natural history study is so important, because when we learn one thing from one patient, we're able to apply that so broadly, and it's able to affect so many more people because of it. So, if you're watching today and you have not signed a consent form, if you're not a part of the study, please, please join. We want to learn from you. We want to help you. And you're not only helping yourself, but you're also helping many other patients with FD.
I think I'm running towards the end of the questions. I know we are scheduled to go for a little longer. If there anything on the panel, any of the panelists wanted to add anything that they wanted to mention or sharpen or respond to something before we wrap up?
Can I add something about the televisits, Adrian?
Yes, go ahead.
The most helpful thing we've come to see is the videos that the families send. So they prepare so much for the visit by having not only the lab exams and having or sending us all the results they have accumulated throughout the year, but also watching the videos, how the patients are moving back and forth, how the mobility is improving, or how are they dealing with certain aspects or challenges of the mobility. We review that beforehand, and then we can recommend afterwards and seeing how they are progressing. So I think that everybody has in their hands a phone that can make the video, and preparing for the visit has helped us a lot.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. That's really very interesting. Another question has popped up with regard to the treatment center in Mexico. Is there something perhaps you could share with us a bit more? Maybe you can give us a little bit more insight about the doctor and the setup there in Mexico, and how that's helping us a little bit more with some of our own or some of the other centers as well.
Oh, I can tell you, of course, Alejandra is quite connected. This is the center that she started.
Yeah.
Right, but she's very humble, so I'm jumping here. I think it's a great facility. They have very well trained people, and Maru Briceño is a fantastic doctor. She spent time with us. we look forward to have this as a excellent or center of excellence for treatment of people in Mexico. As you're aware, we found, and we use these on other FD days. Let me just remind you that perhaps one of the most astonishing findings is that we found patients with the classic mutation, with 2 copies of the founder mutation in Mexican patients that are completely unaware of any Jewish heritage. Now, this is not just one person that grew up, let's say, during the Second World War or the Holocaust, sort of hiding their Jewish identity and then re-encountering it. These are families that we have at least 3 or 4 generations of records that they were not Jewish. Of course, genes don't lie, and both of them are father and mother are descendant from the Pale area, and they have the founder mutation. So we believe there are going to be more patients in Mexico, more patients with FD, and we are delighted to have that center in Mexico City that now is able to not only centralize the care, but perhaps do more surveys and try to find more patients.
Do they have an issue there with the elevation of Mexico City? Someone's asking that. Is that a concern? Because we know when we travel, being at a relatively high altitude, sometimes we have to be very careful with SATs. So do you know if is that a particular different issue? Is it managed the same there?
What's the height of Mexico City, Alejandra? Is it 2,000?
Yeah, it's really high.
Yeah, that's high.
Remember, is a different story to go to a very high area than to be born and live in a high area, right? You get used to lower levels of oxygen and you compensate by higher red blood cells. So, but we haven't looked specifically at that in Mexican FD patients.
It's the adjustment, which is the difficult thing in FD, to adjust to the lower levels. Correct. Eventually they can adjust, but when you first arrive, and it was said it's over 7,000 feet, so that really is very, very high. You know, that's like being in an airplane without oxygen.
Correct.
Okay. If we're talking, someone has actually asked a question again about sharp thought, which was phosphatidylserine and DHA from omega-3 fatty acids as an additive. And I know we did mention briefly about food additives, but I do remember that we spoke in the past about phosphatidylserine, and I don't think we saw much really that was convincing in the way of efficacy. Has anything changed with that, or is that still how we see it?
No, Adrian, nothing has changed. We don't want to put it down. It could not be replicated in any of the animal models, and Sue can also clarify that. Whereas kinetin and a few other compounds did increase all this was done with mRNA. Now that we have ELP1, an ability to measure the protein, we may re-look at that, because there are patients that are taking phosphatidylserine. I can tell you that no, we did not observe side effects. We are still monitoring those patients, and eventually we'll be able to measure the protein. In looking specifically at the eye and gait, we did not see any difference in terms of improvement, perhaps because the level of the protein didn't go up. So there's nothing new. We don't want to rule it out, but so far results have not been encouraging.
Okay, so it didn't do any harm. No one got really sick from it, but it's not really clear what the upside is. And there may be something, but it's not something that we've been able to measure, the positive effect of it.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And it was not a formal trial. We thought that the group that was closer was going to do a formal trial. So we did an informal trial and follow those patients.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There was a question early on about the use of Precedex in Israel, and I actually just got off a plane and I wrote to her and asked her about it. And she said at the moment it's not available, the formulation that you're discussing, but they do use it intranasally in the emergency room sometimes. So it is used, but not in that specific formulation. But that's something we can talk about.
That formulation, Adrian, sorry, that formulation has just been approved in the US. It's not used yet. We are going to use it. We are aware of the intranasal one. We use that and we publish that. But the fact that they are using it in Israel is very encouraging, and we hope that we can arrange with Bat and and also with Alex at Hadassah and see if they can. I mean, we really want them to participate in the trial and to have not only the doctors but the Israeli patients participate in the trial.
I mean, that's something we really want to work hard on this year. And we did because my Zoom issue, I didn't say it, but within the SAB, we are really looking. I mean, I'm based in Israel, but I really want to. We have so few patients. 300 worldwide. It's barely enough to run a clinical trial. So we have to leverage all of the patients that we have. And it doesn't matter if they're in Mexico or Israel or UK or Australia or the US, we have to find a way to bring them all in because it will accelerate the development of the treatments that we have. So we have to leverage that. And we have to use what we're learning about treatments from one to the other. And I think that's all we can try and do. And I'm optimistic, and we have to look for what better ways of doing that, especially now the COVID restrictions have passed us. We have to make the most of what we have.
Adrian, that's music to my ears. Baruch Hashem, let's hope that happens.
Everything. There are a few other things going on here and in a few other places, but that's our hope.
Thank you.
If no one, I don't have any more questions that have been fed to me either in writing or in about 4 different chat functions that I'm looking at. So is there anyone else on the panel who wanted to add anything or to ask anything?
Adrian, looks like there's a question in the Q&A.
Okay. Yep.
For a few years, I produced involuntary tears. Maybe this is for Lila. My eyes will suddenly leak, in quotes.
Oh, yes.
Something you've seen in other patients. And I also think there's another question about a clinic in Mexico City. But anyway, that's Lila. Are you ready for that Q&A?
I mean, there's base tearing, there's reflex tearing when something gets in the eye and it irritates it, and then there's emotional tearing. They all still require the lacrimal gland, which is up, at the near our temple, near at the upper lid. That's where the tears are made. It still requires that to, get those signals. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I've seen many FD patients that describe that to me, but it's only a good thing. So I'm glad that they were able to have some tear production. But I think the group has already pointed out, it is possible to have FD patients make tears. We know that's possible. It's just trying to get them a medication that is helpful and that can be used realistically on a regular basis. And the interesting thing about that spray, varenicline, is I believe I was talking with Kaya and Zenith, and it causes sneezing. Of course, it's a nasal spray. And I believe they were telling me that sometimes that can even function to help stop a crisis. The act of sneezing affects that, and sometimes. So, I mean, there might be, other ways that these pathways are kind of helping create tears, but I think the most important thing is that in that case, there is some sensation that is still creating that response. And our eyes tear when they're dry too. A lot of patients without FD don't realize that. They're like, how can I have dry eye? My eyes are tearing, but it's actually in a response to their dry eye. So perhaps it was, there is a feedback loop there that is working to create those tiers.
So, and whoever, thank you so much, Lila. Whoever make that pose the question, we will be very interested in seeing a video also and getting more details. Like Lila explained, rather than, and we published an interesting report showing that FD is really not a disease without tears, is a disease with hidden tears. Because if we stimulate the lacrimal glands, the tears are produced normally, meaning the problem in FD is not in the lacrimal glands. The problem is in the cables that stimulate the lacrimal glands when the cornea is irritated. So the lacrimal glands are okay, the cables are reduced. And again, if that person that asked the question could send us a video and details, we could try to understand things better or putting in context. And thank you.
We've just had another question now about cyclic vomiting syndrome, and have they been tested for FD, and do they have anything that would help in FD? So is any of the NYU team would like to volunteer to answer that?
Well, yes, you know, cyclic vomiting, like the word tells you, is a syndrome in where people vomit with no apparent reason. Now, in people with FD, the symptom may be similar, but they don't have the cyclic vomiting syndrome. They have retching and vomiting due to crisis. So, yes, we think we have a treatment for the vomiting that occurs in FD when it's related to crisis, and we use carbidopa for that and other medications, and our data suggests that this is due to very high levels of dopamine in blood. Whether cyclic vomiting in non-FD people have a similar mechanism is not known. Cyclic vomiting in people that don't have FD doesn't have a good explanation. It's a syndrome without known cause.
No, you answered it very clearly. It's unrelated to a different reason. Vomiting is a reaction, but it's a reaction to something else. It's not a reaction to the same thing. And it's interesting because we give carbidopa for Parkinson's disease with levodopa, because otherwise all the levodopa, you know, there's too much levodopa in the circulation, makes people vomit. So the carbidopa gets the levodopa to go straight to be dopamine in the brain, and not to have that sort of peripheral effect. And it's interesting that carbidopa works so well for us. I mean, it's not to do with levodopa, but it kind of does the same thing. It stops too much exposure of the dopamine in the periphery. So it's an interesting drug. It's an old drug, but it's very interesting that it works for us.
Correct. And that's where the idea came from, right? For the effect.
Yeah.
You know, as many of you know, the drug for Parkinson's that Adrian is referring to is the combination of levodopa and carbidopa. And that drug commercially is called Sinemet. Now, Sinemet, which made Merck the darling of Wall Street selling that drug, Sinemet is in Latin means without vomiting, right? So that's where the idea came from, Sinemet, right? No vomiting.
Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up the Q&A now. I've tried to juggle all of these questions and try to also recover from my Zoom disaster at the beginning. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their questions and their patience and their answers. And it's really been a great pleasure again to host this session. And thank you to everyone for listening in and to putting your questions. And of course, you can write to us as well if you have those questions and you have further things to add. But again, I think it was a very interesting and varied list of questions, and we've all done our best to answer them. So thank you, everyone. And I'll now hand back to the team to go forward with FD Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was really informative. It was a great session. And do you want to take any questions from the group about any of the presentations that we've heard so far? And any of the staff at the Dysautonomia Center can maybe take your questions.
Hi, I noticed a lot of people were asking how they might be able to participate in some of the trials, like the Precedex trial. So maybe this is, while we're waiting for Adrienne, maybe we could address that for a minute. There were at least 5 people showing up in the chat on that.
Definitely. I think that either Dr. Gonzalez Duarte or Dr. Horacio Kaufman would be happy to answer questions on that. Here's Dr. Kaufman.
Yeah, I will. Well, we are we're all delighted that you are interested in participating. We would very much like Israel to participate in the trial. We need Dr. Bat El-Bar to get the trial approved in Israel. Again, we'll be more than delighted for Israel to participate. We will talk with Dr. Bat, and I ask you also to encourage Bat El-Bar to participate. It's a straightforward trial, and we think it will be successful. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much, Dr. Kaufman. And I think for anyone that's interested on the state side, you can always send us a message and write to us about your interest in clinical trials. We'll also be sending out e-blasts to all the parents and patients as well, so we can start recruiting more people for the clinical trials as well.
And Dr. Gonzalez Duarte, did you have anything to add to that?
So we, Horacio, you too, we have been working out all this year to have the best candidates in the studies. I do have to say this is quite a challenge because we have to make sure that everybody that participates are on the track in terms of safety, which is the most important, but also that will understand and will be having some benefit from the trial. So do not worry that we have you on board, that we know your case, and that we will reach out if we feel that that's what we need to do for starting the trial. I know because we have had these conversations over and over, who's gonna be first, who's gonna be second, how are we gonna choose? But the idea is to get everybody on board, but by their clinical status, and that changes over time. So we will be reaching out to everybody.
Also,
yes,
we had a really great, Leanne just put in the chat information about the parents and caregiver support groups. So we invite parents, we invite siblings, we invite anyone who's interested or has questions about caring for someone with FD to join our sessions. Sessions are held twice a month, and we usually try to have a daytime session and an evening session just to be flexible and to accommodate to your guys' schedules. So if anyone has any other questions, what benefit have you seen parents say from the support group?
Oh, so much. Everyone just thinks that Matt has such a very therapeutic way about him. And I think it's even more so not just the contact with a social worker, but someone that can facilitate a conversation amongst other parents. And I think going back to how parents are such the rock and the foundation of everything, sometimes when one person has a strength in one aspect, another has another strength, and just sharing knowledge is an amazing thing. So I love that this is a program that's available now, and I can't wait to see where it becomes and what it develops into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know the Familial Dysautonomia Foundation also has other support groups for siblings. There's a lot of virtual game nights. So, the power of camaraderie is truly just so beautiful, and shared experiences. And I think, really harnessing Zoom and the virtual world, allows people in this very, very rare disease to come together and to share their experiences.
Next, it's my honor to introduce to you this year's Distinguished Honorees presented by Miss Leanne Lugg.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne Lugg. I'm a program coordinator here at the NYU Dysautonomia Center. The Distinguished Awards has always been one of my favorite parts of FD Day, and so I'm proud to present to you this year's honorees. The Distinguished Awards honor inspirational individuals with familial dysautonomia for their accomplishments. We selected this year's honorees for their attitudes and approach to life. All of them have shown the strength to persevere through the difficult days and to not let anything stand in the way of their goals. They are determined and courageous, and that's why they are distinguished. This year's award winners include a teenager who loves sports, a young adult entering the career world, an artist, and a very accomplished bowler. Here's a glimpse into the lives of our honorees. If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be? The title of Malia's book, Super Mals.
I am a winner.
Malia is a teenager with a bright smile and a wonderful sense of humor. She's warm and brave and meets the challenges of FD in her own unique way. How would you describe yourself in one word?
I am fun.
Malia likes to try new and difficult things.
I like playing my fun.
She says that being a teenager can be hard at times, but that's a part of growing up.
When I help my mom and my family and my family, I don't want my money.
Her advice to everyone, understanding your body when going through difficult times can make the good times come back sooner than you might think. Don't forget to breathe. The title of Matthew's book, Never Give Up. Matthew is a young man who does not let obstacles stop him from achieving his goals. He has a courageous spirit and is proud of his accomplishments, which include completing 1 year of college and starting a career working in nonprofit organizations. Matthew is ambitious and enjoys working hard to achieve his dreams. His advice, never give up. The title of Aaron's book, A Story of a Special Boy.
I'm Aaron McPhail, and I'm 4 years old.
Aaron is a star. He has an infectious smile that captivates everyone who meets him. He enjoys art and is known for designing custom playing card decks.
I'm proud of the things I made, like playing cards and posters. This is my family one.
The King of Hearts. That's perfect.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Great.
I would definitely agree with that one.
Huh?
It's no wonder that he was given a trophy for Best Person Loved by All on his 40th birthday. The title of Joshua's book, The Saga of Joshua Harris Noble.
My name is Joshua Harris Noble. I am currently 41 years old.
Joshua is wonderfully kind, thoughtful, and brings joy to everyone who knows him.
I love watching and listening about baseball. I also enjoy collecting several things, action figures like Power Rangers, Marvel.
He's an avid sports fan and an amazing bowler. He has bowled 4 perfect games with a score of 300 points.
I really love going bowling. One of the main things I'm really proud of myself for is scoring 300 scores at bowling.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
I would have to say probably amazing. It's amazing how far I've come in my life, and I try my best not to think so badly about myself. Continue to do what I do. Not let FD control me.
His persistence in working hard to reach his goals no matter what is admirable.
Thank you. Glad you enjoy it.
Thank you so much to all of this year's honorees, Malia, Matthew, Aaron, and Joshua. Congratulations.
What an incredible group. What an incredible group of amazing honorees. Honestly, your guys' stories just inspire us every single day and make what we do here at the center so much more fun. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you so much for putting that together, Leanne and Meki. Next, we have one of my favorite parts of today's show, the FD Day 2023 World Through My Eyes competition, where we'll have some incredible artists showcase their talents.
Welcome to the World Through My Eyes 2023, an annual art competition that showcases the creative talent of artists living with familial dysautonomia. Just before we begin the show, we would like to express our gratitude for the judges and to give you an opportunity to meet them. Our esteemed judges this year include painter and art collector Rafael Bueno, curator Rosario Guiraldes, art historian Demacia Lacroce, literature, psychoanalyst, and musician Jennifer Sontag, painter and art instructor Ines Bancalari, and sculptor and emergency medicine doctor Chris Ingram. They graced us with their presence for judging night this year, and we are very thankful for their time and thoughtful contributions. And now, on with the show. Keshi Tarian Kegel painted this self-portrait in oil paints on canvas called Self-Portrait in Purple. What Keshi said about this painting was that it was one of her very first portraits during her first year of college. She says, looking at it now, there's a metaphorical aspect to the painting. Even though my body lacks the ability to feel intense pain or temperature, a bird pecking at my eye may explore my inability to produce tears. The judges were impressed by Keshi's metaphor, as well as her excellent technique, skillful brushstrokes, and amazing color palette. The title of Mara Clausen's acrylic painting on canvas is The Gift of Where You Were Born. Mara tells a story about her artwork, saying, South Korea is a blessing country for me. I was born there. I wanted to paint the beautiful colors of the places and people from the earliest time when I was ever alive. It's like Korea put more spirit in me. My mom was pregnant with me there, and she ate lots of rice and fermented vegetables that I believed helped my FD. I appreciate that I can experience many things in this world, like I can eat by mouth. I love eating Korean food. I was lucky I was born in Seoul, Korea. We are so connected. The judges agreed that her art exudes color, excitement, and gratitude. Peter Sonnenschein painted Eye of the Storm by using both acrylics and markers on canvas. He describes his vision, saying it has multiple meanings. He said, first of all, my eyesight has been diminishing in years. I can see when I'm working on a canvas or texting, but when things are farther away, I can't see. So the rain and clouds also represent the compromise of my vision. Also, the storm refers to the autonomic storm, the crisis due to FD. Then eyes are not only a window into the soul, but a window into FD. Judges commented on the powerful imagery here, which feels like a yearning for a life outdoors and outside of crisis. In a second submission from Pete, he painted the Northern Lights using pastels and acrylics on canvas. Pete says, I've always been interested in seeing the Aurora Borealis live, but we all know that won't be happening, so the next best thing, create a picture of it. The judges applaud his work, saying he really captured what it looks like. With incredible bursts of color and contrast with the darkness, he was able to suggest more motion than most people would be able to. Forever whimsical, Josh Keats entitled this digitally manipulated self-portrait, Seriously, Don't Mess With Me. Josh said, I like to express myself with Apple photo apps. I have the power to create and be myself. Judges loved this manipulation and wanted to know more about his process to arrive at the final distortion. They said the result is a swirly, painterly, and engaging caricature. Benny Tarian created another masterful sculpture and mosaic this year called Jewel Kidney. He made this kidney from wood cut in the shape of a kidney and adorned it with glass, wood, metal, and plastic beads, pieces of upcycled jewelry, amethyst stone, and broken ceramics. Benny said, a close friend offered to be my kidney donor. This mosaic is my thank you to her. I created this with her in mind to show how precious she is, how precious her gift is, and to express how much I appreciate it. It's been a long time since I've been this excited about an art project. The broken ceramic pieces came from an old dish that I broke into pieces with a hammer. This act of breaking the dish represents my failing kidneys. Using the broken pieces to create a new kidney represents my regained health and the gift of my friend's kidney. Micaela Gluck wrote this poem called Me Duele la Cabeza and said it describes her daily life. Micaela is from Argentina, and she provided the English translation, which reads, I do things all the time. I do homework and I learn to read. I do things to not suffer. I watch videos on my cell phone. The pain comes suddenly. I put on a cold gel headband that I keep in the fridge. The cold in the head and walking calms me down. Sometimes it happens fast, and sometimes it doesn't. It comes when I wake up from sleeping. It goes away when I go to school. It comes when I'm bored. It goes away when I go for a walk. It comes when the weather does not help to leave the house. It goes away when I go shopping. It comes when they don't let me buy what I want. It goes away when I go to the square with my mom. It comes when I can't find things. It goes away when I do crafts. I try to learn to live with my headache. Judges love the realism of it and the figuration of a headache as a regular visitor. Let It Rain by Justin Sachs is an acrylic painting on canvas. Justin says, I painted Let It Rain to show that even on gloomy, rainy days, rainbows can shine through and make me happy. It also reminds me that even on days when I don't feel well, I know I'll get through it and I'll feel the sunshine once again. Judges commented on how rain is typically painted as dark and gloomy. But here, Justin paints the rain as something beautiful and bright, and it's the umbrella that's holding back the rainbows. Sometimes when we're feeling bad, we shield ourselves from what we fear. But sometimes the shield prevents us from experiencing joy. Justin also painted Harvest Bounty, another acrylic on canvas. He says, Harvest Bounty and its warm colors represent one of my favorite seasons. I love the changing colors and the coolness in the air, and it brings back memories of hay rides to the pumpkin patch with my brothers when we were kids. Fall also makes me a little sad because it's when my brothers go back to college and I'm alone with my parents, but it's not the same. I miss them a lot and we'll always have great memories, and I know they'll be back soon to have more fun together. Judges love the feeling of solitude and longing expressed by the bird. Simi Steiner made another incredible original music video this year called All Too Well, and here is a clip of her video.
Yeah, now you do it. Darum Pöbels always done, they order, weighing in holding, pouring pine, taking holding, nothing purchase, it's all day. Yeah. Taking if I too hard form, compared to anyway. Every time it's the same. Taking my blood pressure, touching down, and take up, take down, take up, down, and taking, too tired to do all these things. It's always fun. They order, waiting for them, holding fine, taking funny, nothing person, it's all day. It's a very time, guys. Move it 10 times. They had to go like, my legs are on. It's all to go back. It's all to go back. It's all to be that. I'll be happy if I just start going. Get home. But it's so tiring. We're allowed to go there. If you ever find for it, I won't have to go back. But until then, it's always fun. They order, waiting for them. Holding fine, taking funny, nothing person, it's all day. Is that possible?
Judges said Simi keeps getting better and better. They said her phrasing is awesome, they appreciated the musical changes in the song, and they loved her use of alliteration in the chorus. They said her lyrics are ironic and wise. Overall, they said to Simi, you are a star. Eli Berkovitz drew this portrayal of an autonomic crisis using crayon on paper and calls it Crisis Monster. Eli walks us through his drawing, saying the top left monster is when crisis is the worst. Bottom left is when medicine is starting to work. Bottom right is starting to feel better, and top right is feeling good again. Judges were struck by the different emotions coming from these 4 individual portraits. In the top left portrait, in which Eli feels the worst, there are no discernible facial features, and the colors and markings are intense and wild, completely destroying the image. Judges were reminded of The Scream by Edvard Munch. This drawing gives us a glimpse into what it feels like to experience an autonomic crisis. This photo collage created by Gabby Jassy is called Human Lab Rat. What Gabby says about her piece is that it's how I sometimes feel. Judges appreciated the tongue-in-cheek humor from Gabby and acknowledged the underlying frustration that she has living with a rare genetic disease. But incredibly, she can channel her anger and frustration and express it. For Gabby and many others, art can allow expression of feelings. Elon Friedman created this beautiful painting in acrylic on canvas called Gorilla. Gorilla is an honorary submission this year since Elon passed away 5 years ago. The late artist's mother says it means strength and beauty. Judges were wowed by the stunning painting, noting the extraordinary expression and depth in the eyes. And the technique is incredible. There's so much detail in the eyes, and then it gets very abstract as it moves out with wash and water on the outside, with strong and figurative central features. The details of the white brushstrokes draw you into the eyes, and they wonder, is he thoughtful, angry, passionate, sad? They agree, though, that it shows strength and beauty. Master of Disguise is the title of lyrics written by Alice Altschuler. Alice says this song was inspired by characters on a show I like to watch called Degrassi. It also makes me think of an ex-boyfriend. They say he's a nice guy, but he's a master of disguise. He led 2 girls on with all of his lies. He had issues, that's no surprise, but he's a master of disguise. He leads her on, the master of disguise. She dumps him, no surprise, but she still loves him, that's no lie. The master of disguise always saw her in his eyes. What she didn't realize was that he's a master of disguise. The judges said these lyrics are powerful, sassy, snarky, and a great play on words. You can tell how clever and funny Alice is, and you can almost hear her mischievous grin. Wow, I'm Photogenic by Andrew Sigmund is a portrait he took of his faithful companion. Andrew says he is always by my side. Regarding Andrew's comment, you can see that in the dog's watchful eye and peaked ears, which are clearly trained on the companion to be alert. Judges adored this photo and gave it top remarks for its powerful contrast, light, and illumination. It's very playful, even though the portrait itself is devoid of color. And they said it also inspires the title, Woof, I'm Photogenic. Ravid Mendelovich also captured her 3 dogs in a portrait called My 2 Huskies and a Yorkie. Ravid said, you can see the differences in the dog's personality that shine through. The middle one, who is the alpha, looks the most mischievous. It goes to show that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover and not by its size, and to not judge a person with FD. Rachel Eisenson, our seasoned dog portrait artist, created collages of her friends' dogs this year called Jewish Dog Collages. Rachel said these are photos of friends. This can be interpreted both as these are photos of her friends' dogs, but also that all of these dogs are her friends, which we know to be true for Rachel, who is a true dog lover and loves her dog Chloe dearly. These collages also show that despite the physical distance between us, people can still have shared experiences and remain close through sharing of photos, cultures, and stories. Michael Brenner created a video documentary of his reality, a look to the world through his eyes, in this video called My Room is My Happy Place. And here is a clip of his video.
Action! I'm Micah, and my room is my happy place. Let's take a little tour. My TV makes me happy. It's always on when I'm home. My DVD and movie collection is my hobby and my life. Let me show you. There are 38 shelves, almost filled with more discs. And when I'm not watching movies, I use my iPad to research new releases and watch YouTubers who have similar interests. I love sci-fi, anime, action, adventure, kids, and comedies. Dramas, read most everything. Even my comforter has pillows on it. I hardly enjoy seeing my world inside my room, and it's my happy place.
Michael says, this video shows why I love my room and that everything in it is important to me every day. In this video, you could see how in his room he is in control, he has the power to connect with other YouTubers with similar interests, and he's happy. Thanks for sharing your world with us, Michael. It is truly lovely. This sweet photo, called Things I Love by Franny Cohen, invites us as well to share in her cozy paradise. Franny said, "My knitting and my dog bring me great comfort. My dog Franklin frequently lays next to me while I do my knitting." There are so many warm and soft welcoming surfaces in this photo, and the dog and blanket look like they're extensions of each other. Franny shows how she is truly inhabiting a world that is bringing her comfort. Yarn World by Rebecca Newman also depicts her love for knitting. Rebecca says, "In the fall, I restarted knitting again, and I take classes at a local knitting store. This photo makes me happy since I enjoy knitting." The colors in the wall of yarn, in the shades of roses and ice cream, evoke pleasant thoughts and memories. And for Rebecca to want to capture these colors, she recognizes both beauty in the raw material as well as their and her potential. Jackie Goldberg documents sheer joy in her video photo montage called My Amazing Life. Jackie says, "I've been living my best life recently. I was accepted to Kids of Courage last summer, and it completely changed my life for the better. I've been spending time with friends and not worrying about stresses of life. Life only gets better from here. I'm looking forward to a summer full of adventures."
Take a drive down the highway of life. Give me 5, my friend. Here we are, we're together again, and remembering when we met. All the games, all the jokes that we laughed at, the pain that we shared, and we knew that no matter what came, our bond would remain the same. I can travel down any road, 'cause I know that I'm not alone. I've got my friends and their loyalty. I've got my friends who always see the best in me. I've got my friends every step of the way. My friends have helped to shape the man I am today.
We love this for Jackie, and we're so happy for her. It sounds like going out of her comfort zone really gave her a positive attitude and a new outlook on life and the opportunities of tomorrow. She's Going Back to Normal After the Pandemic by Veronica Segal. Veronica says, "I'm slowly doing more things after the pandemic, going to the hairdresser and restaurants." Veronica's smile and phone are bright and colorful compared to the stark and sterile space around her. She shows her joy and self-confidence, and the judges said, "Really cute haircut." Finally, to end the show with a very special treat, we have a stop-motion animated film written and illustrated by Morgan Asanowski called Captain Morgan Travels the World. The narration was provided by his art instructor, Ashley Asuncion Morales. Morgan says about his film, "I wrote a story with characters inspired by characters from other stories and real people I know." Please enjoy this clip of Morgan's video, and you can access the full 7-minute movie along with all of the full videos from today on dysautonomiacenter.com following FD Day. Enjoy!
Once upon a time, there was a pirate named Captain Morgan. He liked to travel the world. The name of the ship was Sir Butterscotch Ripple III, but everyone just called her Scotty. Captain Morgan is not an ordinary pirate like most pirates. He does not have his crew yet. Also, his ship can transform into an airplane so he can fly all around the world. Hi, my name is Captain Morgan, and I need someone to be on my crew. If you join my crew, I will allow you to steer the ship. My name is Cowboy Trent. Then welcome aboard, matey. But first, we have to find someone to join our crew. They saw a handsome-looking troll who was working on a model of a pirate ship. Ahoy there, matey. My name is Captain Morgan, and this is Cowboy Trent. If you join us, I will allow you to be the chef on the ship. It has always been a dream of mine to be cooking for a pirate crew. He saw a monkey that was wearing a red shirt with the letter A on it. If you join my crew, I will allow you to be the lookout. My name is AI, and I would like to join your crew. It has always been a dream of mine to be the lookout on a pirate ship. Captain Morgan introduced AI to Cowboy Trent and Stuart. They both found him amazing. They came upon a wooden cabin. Captain Morgan told his crew to wait there while he goes to check it out. When he got to the cabin, he opens the door and stepped in. It was dark inside, so he felt for a switch and turned on the lights. He saw a woman wearing a red bandana. She was sitting on a rainbow bench. Ahoy there, matey. My name is Captain Morgan, and I am looking for someone to join my crew. I will allow you to be my first mate. It is great to meet you, Captain Morgan. My name is Miner Sarah. It has always been a dream of mine to be a captain's first mate. Great. So follow me to my pirate ship. Hi there, little robot. Would you like to join my crew? My crew and I travel all around the world for fun and excitement. No danger on this trip. He told his crew that they were ready to set sail and start exploring the world. The end.
And our top 3 winners for the World Through My Eyes Art Competition 2023 are Morgan Asanowski with Captain Morgan Travels the World, Betty Tarian with Jewel Kidney, and Keshi Tarian Kegel with Self Portrait in Purple. And an honorable mention goes to Elon Friedman for his painting of Gorilla. We'd like to thank his mother Debbie for submitting this very special painting on his behalf. And we'd also like to thank all of the artists and their families for what they've done to put on an incredible show this year. We can't wait to see what you have next year for us in the World Through My Eyes 2024. Thank you.
What a fabulous presentation. I am truly overwhelmed by the talent and creativity of the artists who contributed to this year's amazing competition. Thank you to our artists for participating. Thank you to our judges for your helpful input. And thank you especially to Kaya Dalamo for your tremendous efforts spearheading this amazing project. I know you've worked so long and so hard, Kaya, on putting this together, and it is such a special addition to our FD Day program. Next, some of you may recall that last year we started a new FD Day tradition by presenting the inaugural FD Champion Award to Hank Ahrens. The Champion Award is meant to honor someone who has gone over and above on behalf of the FD community. This year, we will be honoring 2 very special, deserving individuals with this award. Our first awardee is Liza Freed. Many of you know Liza as the former facilitator of the FD Hangouts. Liza took on this role while still a social work student and continued to facilitate these gatherings after graduating with her MSW, and while simultaneously holding down a full-time job. Liza developed close relationships with many of the people who participated in the Hangouts, and she also helped launch a monthly virtual game night, planned in conjunction with our FD Social Committee. Liza's dedication to our committee included training her wonderful successor in the role, Michelle Schwab, and remaining now in a supervisory role. We could not be more grateful for the kindness, caring, and compassion that Liza has shown, and for that, we are delighted to present her with a 2023 FD Champion Award. And now, a few words from Liza.
Hi, everyone. I am on here to thank you so much and tell you how deeply honored I am to have received the FD Champion Award. I have my fancy award right here, and I was just telling a friend that I'm going to put up a shelf behind me so I can display it as an award that I'm really proud of having received. I feel incredibly grateful to have been able to spend the time that I did facilitating and partaking in conversation and games, both heavy and light, with all of you over this last year and a half. I've laughed with you, I've cried with you. I feel really humbled that you've all let me in openly in a way that has made me feel welcomed and loved, honestly. And I would say my work facilitating groups with and for all of you has been some of the most meaningful work of my life. I left so many sessions feeling, again, humbled is the word I think of, knowing that so many of you are living with something that is incredibly challenging. Your families are living with big challenges, and yet you want to play Jeopardy and laugh among your friends, and I got to do that with you. So I just really appreciate the time you set aside to spend time with me and your peers, and for giving me a chance, even if I don't have the same life experience, for letting me in a little bit and sharing a little bit about yours. So thank you so much. Happy FD Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Liza, and congratulations. If anyone watching today is interested in learning about joining a Hangout group, attending the monthly virtual game nights, or participating on the FD Social Committee, please contact the Foundation for more information. The next game night is scheduled for Thursday, June 15th. And now Faye Ginsburg will present the second FD Champion Award.
Hi, everyone. It's my total. That was just great. And Liza, we're just so grateful to you. And thank you also for helping pass the torch on as Michelle Schwab takes over and you offer your wisdom and insight. Thanks again. So my great pleasure is to present this well-deserved FD Champion Award to Barry Rappaport. While she might be known to many of you as Michelle's mom, we're honoring Barry today for two things. First, we are really grateful for her incredible work running the online FD Parents Support Group since at least 2008. Barry and I tried to determine when it really started, so we're going to go with that date. This email list has been an invaluable resource for so many families who seek advice, community, ideas for managing everything from crises to eye drops to exhaustion and much more. Barry has been tirelessly devoted to keeping this list going, diplomatically resolving the occasional dispute or more frequently IT breakdown, covering subjects that range from adjustable beds to carbidopa to scoliosis, and most importantly, providing a much needed platform for building a supportive parents network. In addition to her service keeping our far-flung community connected through that group, Barry has also used her invaluable talents as a recognized market research guru to help the FD community. Through her efforts and skills, working along with board member Steve Keats, we are now able to regularly conduct a world-class patient satisfaction survey regarding services that people receive from the FD Treatment Center. It's crucial for us to really know how people feel about what's going on for them with the treatment center. Barry ensures that all research is anonymous and all survey participants are treated with respect. Her dedication is extraordinary. Barry presents research with incredible detail, as well as clear trends and with effective data visualization that enables all of us to grasp what's going on with the data very effectively. Her work enables the foundation and the treatment center to learn what we could do to improve lives for people with FD and also to understand what's working. Our NYU team in particular welcomes this and makes changes accordingly, leading to better experiences for those with FD, which we see with the steadily improving comments over the years. So we're really, really appreciative to Barry for all the help that you've given us on these two initiatives. So I think would be better than hearing a few minutes from Barry. So we'd like to go to the recording. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here today and wishing you well from wherever you are. I am greatly honored and humbled to be this year's recipient of the FD Champion Award. And I don't even know what to say other than thank you, thank you. I've been a champion and an advocate for Michelle and all of our kids for 28 years, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So please join me as you embark on your journey to help support the foundation and our kids. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Barry, demonstrating her skill in data visualization by having that beautiful award so clearly demonstrated for us. So congratulations again, and thank you for being an extraordinary FD champion. For people who might want to join the parents list, please let us know and we will be sure to connect you. It's been a very important form of community support. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Faye, and congratulations, Liza and Barry, for your well-deserved honor. It's hard to believe that another FD Day has come to an end, excuse me. I am grateful to everyone who worked so hard to put this program together. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for the 38th Annual FD Day Conference. I hope that you are heartened and encouraged by the updates that you heard today. And I encourage you to stay connected with the Foundation and with the FD community throughout the year. Remember, the FD Foundation is here for you. You will receive a post-FD Day survey shortly. We encourage you to complete the survey as your feedback is important to us and will impact our planning for next year's program. In just a few minutes, our post-FD Day events will open right here on this platform. We invite our teens and adults with FD to join the FD Day After Party, which will feature games led by our new facilitator, Michelle Schwab. And we invite parents and others to join our schmooze with Dr. Alejandra Gonzalez Duarte. Both events will take place as Zoom meetings, so attendees can see, speak, and interact with one another. You can return to the lobby and click on those respective events to participate. This event will close, and so if you don't go back to the lobby, it will bounce you back to the lobby anyways. So if you have any technical issues, contact the Foundation. And thank you all for a wonderful FD Day, and we will see you next year. Lahi Trot.